Well, I mean, the word to me means freedom of expression. That's what I think of it. That's all. I mean, and if it is accepted as an art, it is the same as any other art.
Just see.
Well, I mean, the word to me means freedom of expression. That's what I think of it. That's all. I mean, and if it is accepted as an art, it is the same as any other art.
Yes, yo. We back. We kicking the backs in. We back at these FBAs. Sound is good. Mic check, mic check. Okay. So the FBAs, they losing. They losing hard. Saw some big L's this week. Big L's for the FBAs. Let me tell you. Why does the FBA take big L's? Main major issue. FBAs are broadly uneducated, especially when it comes to world historical facts and foreign affairs. Now, I didn't know too much about this FBA culture, actually. I was under the impression that, most Black people came together and supported each other and built each other up. Not so for the FBAs. It's like the old slogan, you cut off your nose to spite your face. So I went to Chat GPT. I said, real talk, will FBA gain economic or political traction? So the FBA, the Foundational Black Americans, will FBA gain economic or political traction? Short answer, not without major changes. Right now, Foundational Black Americans, FBA, have limited economic and political traction as a movement. It's loud online. But in the real world, structures of power, banks, legislatures, major media, and policy, it has not broken through yet. Let's break it down. Political traction, unlikely without strategic shift. What's working? High Black voter turnout makes FBAs a vital piece of US political puzzle. FBA has social media firepower and can push politicians like on reparations or immigration. I had to add that word to my lexicon, my brain dictionary, because that's not part of my vocabulary, because I ain't out here begging. There's a growing desire among many Black Americans to differentiate their political needs from the catch-all term people of color. Too bad no one else thinks so. What's holding it back? No real political infrastructure, no major PACs, no elected officials proudly repping FBA. Divisive messaging, which we'll get into shortly. Anti-immigrant and purity-based rhetoric turns off allies. Say that again. Anti-immigrant and purity-based rhetoric turns off allies, even in the Black community. Interesting. Lack of coalition building. Politics is a team sport. FBA hasn't built bridges with Latino groups, progressive whites, or even Caribbean and African Black Americans, all of which weakens its power. Almost like it's by design. Bottom line, until FBA stops acting like a gatekeeper movement and starts acting like a power building movement, political traction will stay low. Interesting. Economic traction, possible but not yet happening. What's in their favor? Cultural dominance. FBA's lead in music, sports, style, and that can be monetized better. AKA the money's not going in y'all pockets. Y'all dribbling and you making other people rich. Growing interest in Black capitalism and financial literacy. It's a positive. Online platforms allowing crowdfunding, business building, etc. The reality, no unified economic agenda. That goes back to lack of coalition building, right? Divisive messaging, right? There's no FBA economic blueprint. Few institutions, no banks, no national investment groups, no economic infrastructure built specifically for FBA. Wealth gap is massive. Median black wealth is still below $20,000 compared to $180,000 and up for white families. But it's definitely the white people's fault. Tackling that requires generational strategy, not just slogans. Interesting. Bottom line, economic traction will only come if FBA leadership focuses on ownership, land, group economics, and investing, not just internet clout. Very interesting. A lot of people think that clout is a currency and, they're doing it all for clout out here. But the clout doesn't pay the bills at the end of the day. Y'all crashing out. And we saw this in the last week where FBA's was dancing on the grave of Charlie Kirk, celebrating. If FBA keeps its Twitter deep, it won't gain real world traction. If it gets institutional, coalitional, and long game focused, it has a real shot, especially in local politics and business. But right now, it's more of a cultural current than a political economic force. So Chat GPT ain't even taking y'all seriously. Oh, here's some tips. I think it's a bit too little too late if you ask me. Here's what would actually move the needle. Form a PAC, start influencing local elections and primaries, start an FBA investment fund, pool resources and fund FBA owned businesses, which they are not doing. Build alliances, which they are clearly not doing, even if it's just with other pro black orgs. So this goes back to the, this whole divisive language. Oh, we don't associate with any other blacks. It's all about this American. It's almost like I don't want to give it any don't want to paint it. Run candidates, local offices, school boards, city councils, build from the ground up. So I haven't seen much um investment in terms of education. I haven't seen much aside from of course Dr. Umar, right? Who some would say at this point he appears to be a scammer, right? So he hasn't done much in the past 10, 15, 20 years that he's been at his whole game. Create a 10-year plan, economic, political, and media ownership. So a huge problem in a lot of these quote unquote black organizations that I see, whether it be in America, whether it be in Europe, whether it be wherever, right? Is that there's no alliance. A lot of these people, they kind of want to be the face of the freedom, the face of the blacks, right? So it's really all about them at the end of the day. And this is why the education is kept very low, because when people are not educated, they don't look for new innovation to their cause. They don't look for to anything. They just look to the leader, right, to give them the newest talking points or the newest political angle, right? But as it says here very clearly, that works online, but in the real world, is anything being built? Are communities improving? It doesn't appear so, right? So this whole mentality of it's one thing to support your own and be interested in black capitalism, financial literacy, as it states here. It's one thing to build your own and spend your dollar in your own communities. It's another thing to have an open outward hate towards white people, towards even other blacks. They go so far as to take it to other blacks. So they ain't just discriminating against white people, Mexicans, Latinos. They're discriminating against Africans as well. People who the average white person in America can't even tell the difference between the two of you. The thing is, white people also have these types of cults, right? These kind of, racial politics based cults, right? And they don't do very well. Why do they not do very well? Because the white people that are successful, that actually make money, that actually generate wealth that they could pass down for their, to further generations, those people are not outwardly racist. Those people are not outwardly hateful. Those people are not going to cut their nose off despite their face. If they see a black person that's going to give them a leg up, they're going to work with that black person. Perfect example is Nick Fuentes, right? He'll buddy up with Candace Owens. He'll buddy up with, Kanye West. This guy doesn't like black people, but he understands that there's a certain collaboration that needs to take place in order for him to get ahead, right? So this is something that a lot of successful white people understand, but for some reason, blacks, especially when we're talking about in America, that are trying to get ahead, trying to succeed, trying to, compile this wealth and build towards their community, they for some reason haven't caught on to this. If you look at the recently in the news, there was talk about this white only city, right? If you look at those people, these people are broke. This is a white only city. These people are completely broke. How do you know they're broke? Because they're outwardly expressing that they don't want to live around black people. Now, I'll tell you something about wealthy white people, okay? Wealthy white people, because I'll give you a background. I grew up, right, around a lot of white people. I grew up in a white culture. I grew up in a white neighborhood. I grew up in a upper middle class home. I went to private school, right, for most of my younger years. Okay, so I've been around these people. I know wealthy white people, right? Wealthy white people They don't need to outwardly say that they don't want to live around blacks. They don't need to outwardly say that they don't want to be at functions or events around blacks. Wealthy white people have wealthy habits, and these wealthy habits are not frequented by blacks, just statistically. So anyone who's past a certain tax bracket, they're not out here saying, "Oh, we need to get a city for our own people." No, they're moving to a place. They're moving to a city where the median house cost is over $500,000-$600,000. When you move to a neighborhood that's over $500,000-$600,000, naturally there will be less blacks. It's just sad to say, but you see it here, right? Where did I go over that? That the median household income is 20K, right? For Black America, right? Median black wealth, 20K compared to 180K, right? So these people, they're gonna go on ski trips. They're gonna go to specific music events. They're gonna live in specific neighborhood. Their habits, their lifestyle puts them around like-minded people. And when they do meet a black person at these events in these neighborhoods, right? They know that this person passed the barrier in order to be in that position, in order to be in that location, right? So they still might look at you weird, right? Because you can't really get away from that. I'm not saying that there are no wealthy whites who are discriminating, but the average person I see, whether white or black, that concentrates on this trying to stay away from the other races, not trying to collaborate with the other races, these are people that do not succeed in life. All right. I have a video here. I'm gonna check this out. Amazing Lucas. Shout out to Amazing Lucas over here. This guy has been putting out some serious content. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you how whites get down, right? Whites that are not making it. The whites that ain't doing so good. Those are the ones complaining about blacks. Those are the ones with the high racial tone, racial rhetoric. It's always these dudes with a 120K house, right? $30,000 down payment, and they're looking at me. I grew up in homes upward of $500,000. I went to private school, but these people with their $33,000 down payment on their $150,000 home in the middle of nowhere, 45-minute drive to the nearest Walmart, those are the ones that say that we need to not have immigrants, we need to get rid of these people. Those are the ones complaining because they're broke. Shout out to Amazing Lucas. But they're gonna put an ad right there. These classic.
Oh God. Right there, that's this kid, no older than 25, I'm assuming. I mean, given the way some of them age, he could be 16, bro. He could be 16. And he just looks like he's 25, damn near 36. I don't know. All right.
He's out of line, but he's right.
But he's interviewing these two white girls, right? And he's asking a question like, hey, do y'all think that race mixing should be illegal?
Do you think race mixing should be illegal?
Oh God. Right there, that's strike one. And
So homeboy over here is saying, homeboy that's doing the interview, he goes up to these two white girls, right? He thinks this is a layup because he sees these two girls, right? They don't look like girls that, dudes like him, they have an idea of what a girl that likes black guys looks like. So he's going up to these chicks and he's trying to bait them with his, racial questions. This is what this guy does. He goes around, he asks these stupid questions. Look, he's wearing his Groiper attire. He's got the frogs on his shirt. This guy's the whole package here, right? This is the type of dude that talks down on black people, right? So if you're following, right, this is what the FBAs do. They screw themselves because they're putting forth this kind of hateful rhetoric. They're putting forth divisive rhetoric, right? And it's not appealing to most people. It's not appealing to a lot of black people, black Americans, let alone others, right? So this is what this dude does. This is the white version.
Think should be illegal?
What?
He says, "Do you think
Illegal.
race mixing?
Do you think race mixing should be illegal?
What?
Oh God, right there, that's strike 1 and 2, fam. What are you doing asking, two girls if race mixing should be illegal, bruh? It's a sunny day outside. There are women outside, and this is what you're doing with your time. And you wonder why birth rates are declining, mental health skyrocketing, extreme use of antidepressants, fentanyl overdoses, the list goes on.
Beta.
This is why, bruh, is that the white youth are spending time doing stuff like this.
Just to show how counterproductive this is, okay? Could you imagine? Because this dude, why do these guys think like this? Because they're not getting any pussy. Let's be honest. These dudes got a dry dick and they're upset. They're angry. They think that their dick is dry because of black men. That's the reality. These dudes will not get off our dick, right? So he's going up to these chicks and he's saying, "Do you think race mixing is okay?" Right? That's the equivalent of you need a job, right? You hungry, you need a job. You go to a place to get a job, to apply for a job. Before you hand in an application, you're going to the dude and saying, "When's the last time you hired someone? You should hire me right away because I'm going to turn this place around. In fact, I should take your job. I should be owning this place." That's the equivalent. That's the equivalent. Instead of chatting up the girls, this dude maybe would have had a chance. Could have chatted up the girls. Doesn't want to chat them up. He just wants to ask these dumbass questions.
He's spending time talking about race mixing, and watching white nationalist videos online and tweeting about black people instead of, helping your people out. I just don't understand.
There you go. And he's talking about white people. But this is exactly what the FBAs do. They get online, they yell, they talk, they chirp, they dancing on the grave of Charlie Kirk, right? I'm not out here saying y'all supposed to be mourning and grieving, right? But you got to understand that's a bad look. Y'all trying to get some kind of momentum, political, economical momentum. And you out here looking like complete locos. You look crazy.
Nevertheless, he asked the 2 white girls, "Hey, do y'all think race mixing should be illegal?" And they were like, "No, I think you should love whoever you should love." Now, they say something that triggers him. And it seems to be this is a common practice around certain white men. I'm going to be honest with you. Certain, not all, but certain of them. And she says, "I love my chocolate." Woo! No.
Illegal? Illegal?
Should it be legal or illegal?
Illegal.
Oh, no.
No.
Why not?
I love my chocolate. Yeah.
Because this dude, you could see in his face when she said that, he was like, "Oh."
For real. Look at him. He didn't see that coming. He goes up to these 2 girls. He's like, these girls look like they're like some whites. Look at his face.
This
Good.
dude was internally triggered, okay? Completely just flummoxed. He was baffled, deer in headlights, couldn't believe what she said. We'll get into why I think this is so hilarious. But the fact that he hears this and then immediately tries to attack her, calling her a mud shark. Now, for those of you who don't know, mud shark is a derogatory term for women who primarily, who date black guys. That's what it is. It's the bottom feeder, essentially.
I love my chocolate. Yeah.
Everyone loves who they love.
Look at him. He's astonished. He's appalled. Look at him he's got his froggy shirt. These guys think that they're attractive to women. They think that women don't want them because black men are in their country taking their girls. They don't see how atrocious this is. These dudes, they never had a girl. Yo, these dudes are following a dude. Nick Fuentes is a virgin. Let that sink in. These dudes are following a dude who openly admits to being a virgin. And these dudes run around doing this, right? Trolling women, Just watch.
Love it.
So you're a mud shark.
Oh, what?
You're a mud shark?
Well, no BBC equals anger. I told you.
And I find that to be hysterical, right? Their immediate response is, "Oh, I'm going to try and shame you." And we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that point. But it gets worse. The interview gets worse because he goes on to try and justify this prejudice, this racism by saying, well, kids who are interracial, are showing signs of high retardation, right?
Why should race mixing be legal if the child is more likely to turn out?
I mean, that's debatable. Looking at him, he looks like he's full. He doesn't look mixed. This is how a failure behaves, right? This is someone who's failing.
Ironic.
You have two white girls, right?
This is someone
Now,
who's
anyone would-
failing, right? So that is how the FBAs behave. Nothing they're doing is constructive, right? Their actions are not constructive. If they were, they would have some motion at this point. They ain't got no motion. The black community in America has no motion. And y'all gonna get your ass kicked by these Africans coming over. Let me tell you, y'all gonna get your ass kicked. Telling you right now. So the FBAs broadly are uneducated, especially when it comes to world historic facts and foreign affairs. Now, not to run them over too hard, because the average white American is also broadly uneducated when it comes to world historical facts and foreign affairs. That is just the American way, because Americans don't really care about the world, which is a misstep, because it takes this whole world for a country to thrive. You're engaging in trade, you're engaging in, deals, right? So the fact that the FBAs are so concentrated on the United States, that's their downfall. They don't think outside the box. They don't think bigger, right? African people are the majority. FBAs are the minority. Okay? Let's say that again. I'll pull a Dr. Umar. African people are the majority. FBAs are the minority. One more time. No. But y'all ain't gonna get any motion. And the thing about African people is African people have a culture, right? That is very tight knit. And they stick together, they support each other, they open up their, hair extension places, they open up the African food. You got Caribbeans, Africans will eat with Jamaicans, they'll be eating oxtail, jerk, chicken, all type of things. But the FBAs are excluding themselves. They refuse. They want to eat their American Southern food, which that's slave food, straight up, because the food that these black Americans grew up eating, the comfort food, the what they call it? They have a name for it, right? The Southern comfort food. This is slave food. This was the scraps that the slave owner didn't want to eat, or the rejects from their table. That's what they gave their slaves. So and it was the same in the Caribbean, right? In the Caribbean, people have it's like passed down generationally that people want to eat something called steppers. They call it steppers, which is chicken feet. I've had chicken feet soup, very little meat, but hey, it's considered a delicacy in many Caribbean countries, right? But this is not prime food, right? They're not giving you the breast, they're not giving you leg, they're not giving you thigh. They're giving you chicken feet, chicken steppers. They're giving you pork foot, pork tail, right? Cow tongue. These are the things that they were giving to the slaves, right? So I don't know why they adopted all this, hand me down culture, right? They reject African culture, right? They're trying to tie themselves into this American culture, and Americans don't care about you. It should be very evident. That's why they feel the need to lash out, right? That's why you could see that there's the pressure. Every time something happens to a white person, it's like a release, like they want to rejoice. That's not the way. Y'all all in it together. If y'all pretending y'all all Americans together, you got to care about your fellow American, right? You can't on one hand say, no, we're American first, American only, and you're going to discriminate against fellow black people. But then when it comes to occurrences regarding white America, y'all going to celebrate tragedies. Y'all going to, and this is pushed by the higher ups. This is pushed by the leadership. It's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. Let's look at the history of the grand old history that FBAs hold so dear? So y'all is familiar with alligator bait. So alligator bait, right? This is considered mythology, right? Depending on who you ask. Alligator bait, depicting African American children as alligator bait, was a common trope. Very interesting wording. Trope, meaning that it's untrue. In American popular culture in the 19th and 20th centuries, the motif was present in a wide array of media, including newspaper reports, songs, sheet music. They was living it up. They was writing about Africans getting eaten by alligators in songs. They was doing sheet music, visual art. How creative. How creative. The image of black children or infants being used as bait to lure alligators was widespread in white popular culture, often appearing in conjunction with other racist tropes. There is no evidence, this is very important here. There is no evidence in reliable primary or secondary sources that children of any race, I like how they expanded it, they're very quick with that. Children of any race were ever used as bait in alligator hunting. So it is impossible to verify whether or not it was historical reality. Interesting. Oh, I guess it may not be true, right? Maybe people were making it up, right? Let's look at some of the imagery. So we have three black children over here with an alligator. Looks like a postcard. What a lovely, imagine you send that to your relatives. Hey, yeah. You know, we got another variation here, different coloring. Oh, this one with a full body in the mouth. Okay, that's interesting. We have books. Some more variations of the postcard. This guy looks like he's enjoying it. This was a grand old time. Bring the family. You have this. This looks like a bit newer of an iteration. Right? Gator bait. Okay, well, they claim it's not true, right? So let's have a look at these songs. Over here, sheet music. Oh yeah, they told us about the sheet music. Okay, let's check that out. Mammy's little alligator bait. Oh, that looks homely. Huh. Interesting. She looks like a nice young lady. Let's check out the lyrics. Let's see if they was spitting. So this is copyright MDCC. Oof, my Roman numeral knowledge is bad. This is gonna be embarrassing. C must be 100, I guess. 10. No, that's not 100. 365. That's 9. I can't figure that out. Maybe 59? Does it say up here? Of course not. L Roman numerals. I took a big L there. I can't remember all these. So this is published in Chicago by Chaz K. Harris. Whoa, Kamala Harris. Interesting. So the intro. In a little old log cabin way down in Tennessee, I heard a mammy singing, soft and clear. Her voice was sweetly ringing to her. I have to go. This is difficult because you got to read the first line only of these. You read sheet music. Pickaninny boy in his cradle near her wooden rocking chair. His little eyes were beaming as he listened to her voice. She sang to him of slavery, past and gone, and told him of the good Lord who lived way up above. So this is a nice Christian song here. Lull this pickanin to sleep. She sang with mother's love. Hushaby, don't you cry. Mammy's little pickaninny going to get a present mighty. This is some hard southern slang here, right? Hard southern slang. This is unbelievable, these people. See what else we got. They have a candy variety. I remember seeing. Oh yes, little African licorice drops. That's nice. A dainty morsel. So they're depicting that their product is tasty. And how are they depicting that the product is tasty? Because there's a little African boy crawling, baby, crawling away from an alligator. They're loving it. These people are just loving it. They're loving it. And again, this is not all white people, right? But you got to understand what you're doing. This is American history. Don't shoot the messenger, right? This is American history. The FBAs love this, right? This is the country they come out to bat for, right? Well, we just saw that it was not confirmed. We don't know if it's true. I mean, maybe these blacks were just making it up, you know? Black babies were used as alligator bait in the American South. Tales of infants being used as alligator bait, right? Let me just, do I have my thing here? What is happening? What is happening? Yeah, no, I don't want to sign up. Black babies were used as alligator bait in the American South. Right? Tales of infants being used as alligator bait were popularized in 19th century newspapers on postcards and racist memorabilia. Interesting. A lurid tidbit of historical trivia making social media rounds since the late 2000s reveals shocking example of racist cruelty in the United States. Past, namely profit-seeking white hunters, the Deep South, the 19th and 20th centuries, using black slave babies as alligator bait. Interesting. Alligator bait. Alligator hunting was very profitable in the 18th to 1900s. The skins were used to make shoes, bags, belts, and other items. However, white hunters often lost their arms and sometimes their lives as they rustled the swampy waters at night, attempting to attract alligators to the surface. So they decided to use slave babies as bait. This horrendous act was later characterized in sheet music. You would think that it was later characterized because this was a practice that was taking place. I don't think they just imagined this. And even if they did just imagine it, no one acted on it. No one said, hey, that's a good idea. Let's use these babies as alligator bait. So as the last site alluded to, Wikipedia, right, which is complete lies. When I was in school, we weren't even allowed to use Wikipedia as a source because it was considered utter garbage. Now kids are using ChatGPT, right? So hey, this horrendous act was later characterized in sheet music, postcards, and figurines. Years later, a candy manufacturer of black licorice drops created a distasteful advertisement that featured a hungry-looking alligator leering at a bug-eyed black baby. The ad read, "A dainty little morsel." For decades, the popular candy was referred to as N-word babies. The name was later changed to nibs. So y'all eating nibs. That's the history of nibs. Right? That's the history of nibs. Among other venues, these claims are elaborated on in an April 2012 forum post, asserting that black infants were not only routinely served up as alligator bait, but horribly skinned alive in preparation for it. Alligator bait, the term derives from actively conducted by white men, mostly in the swamps of Louisiana, Florida, South. These white people were sick beyond belief. These alligators needed hunters. So, long story short, this is the history, right? So, FBA is under the impression that the people that did this to your ancestors, right, are going to give you reparations for it. How many years has it been? How many years has it been that you're looking for reparations? How many years? How many dollars? Dollars are 0. Years, almost a couple hundred, right? So this is the thing that these FBAs that don't investigate, right, world history, foreign affairs, world historical facts, they may not know about Haiti because they don't care about Haiti. They say, oh, Those are tethers. Tether. They just throw on this tether, right? It wouldn't surprise me if a white man created the term tether to keep you all divided. When I see FBAs come up on the internet and they're talking big, I'm just laughing because, again, African people are the majority and FBAs are the minority. Not only are they the minority, but they're fighting for a country that is losing ground, right? This country is making all kind of mess, worldwide mess, right? You saw earlier this month, they strained relations with South Korea because some woman decided in Georgia that she's going to call ICE to come take down these workers at the Hyundai plant. Hundreds of workers were arrested. I think it was around 300, right? 300 workers were arrested. They needed these workers to train the American workers because a lot of the material is in Korean. So they locked up these people, they got them deported, and it just looks terrible. It looks terrible. The Korean government is very shameful, right? They feel great shame from a business standpoint, from an economical private sector standpoint, right? These people are now getting skittish. They don't want to think about other countries that may have large industries that they want to invest in the United States. They're not interested now because they're like, yo, y'all is nuts. Yo, Americans just deport. We send people who are approved to work. It's not like these people snuck across the border, right? These are people on a business trip, right? From South Korea. So it's not like these people snuck across the border. These people were supposed to be in the country. They were supposed to be training American workers, right? New plan. And this woman took it upon herself to call ICE, get them out of the country, get them out. So the world is watching, the world is seeing this. This, along with many other events that we've seen, right, that the government puts forth that just harms Americans in general. But for some reason, you have FBAs who are not interested in any of this. They're only interested in begging for these reparations that they're never going to get. And even if they would, get a significant market share in American economy, that's not going to be what it once was. But if they knew anything about the world, they would know that. And they would start making these coalitions, these alliances with other nations. But they're not interested. So as Jesse Lee Peterson would say, suffer and die. So alligator bait, right? So, I mean, hey, maybe it happened, maybe it didn't, right? Who knows? Who really knows, right? Now, going further now into the American history, right? You have some people on YouTube that like to call white people the lineage of evil or the evil lineage. I don't subscribe to that, right? Because I know that there are good and bad people of all races, right? And historically, there have been a lot of whites that have been very gracious to blacks, right? And have helped them throughout all of their plights. And likewise, there have been many blacks who have been a hindrance. And you see that today. A lot of the time, the people putting the stick in the spoke of your wheels, the people trying to prevent you from getting ahead, are fellow black people. So you have to understand who is your ally and who is not your ally. And it's not simply based on race. And it never has been. Of course, you have to keep an eye out. There are people that have a specific history, like Americans. The American culture has a history of violence, of theft, right? When you think about American history, what really have they produced? I mean, they had a time of production, right? But in reality, their main economic strength is the military. Why is it their main strength? Because they go around the world and take resources from other countries. Resources, cash, right? America doesn't have much gold. They have what? Coal, right? Coal, you got some gold, you got some silver mines, but there isn't really any water. There's no water. Without Canada, y'all got if you pay attention to the water that you see at gas stations, at Walmart, 99% of the water you'll see, it says it's treated water, or it's bottled water, or it's purified water, right? Other countries, yo, spring water, glacier water. This is fresh water, right? That comes from a spring or it comes from a glacier. It's fresh water. It's not water that comes out of the faucet that's been purified. Garbage. Look more into the history. Why Laos has been bombed more than any other country? Now, I know FBAs. I don't expect you to know what Laos is or to have ever heard of it because, I mean, I understand your educational predicament. So Laos is an Asian country, right? It borders with China, I believe Myanmar. But it's a poor Asian country, and they're poor because of, well, there's several economic reasons, but in the 60s, right, there was a very interesting event that took place. The U.S. bombing of Laos, 1964 to 1973. These are interesting dates because y'all is dealing with descendants of people that took part of this, right? It was part of a covert attempt to wrest power from the Communist Pathet Lao, a group allied with North Vietnam, Soviet Union during the Vietnam War. The officially neutral country, okay, so this was a country that was not instigating, not involved, right? The official neutral country became a battleground in the Cold War between the United States and Soviet Union, with American bombers dropping over 2 million tons of cluster bombs over Laos, more than all the bombs dropped during World War II combined. Now, this country is very small. Let me pull up what Laos looks like. So this is Laos. Yeah, so my geography is not bad. It's bordering Myanmar, it's bordering China, it borders Vietnam, Thailand, and Cambodia. Okay? I don't expect you guys to know where this is if you're an FBA, because y'all, let's be honest. So this is Laos, very small country, right? So they dropped 2 million tons. Okay? On a country that was not at war, mind you. Where's Laos? Okay, we went over that. Sure. Its proximity to Mao Zedong's China made it critical to Dwight Eisenhower theory of keeping communism at bay. If Laos were lost to Southeast Asia, the rest of Southeast Asia would follow, Eisenhower told his National Security Committee or Council. Eisenhower's successors in the White House, John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon, all approved the escalating air support for the guerrilla fighters, but not publicly. So behind the back, right? So these are people that are throwing the rock and hiding the hand, right? You see, as you can see, it's not, they ain't balling. They definitely not balling. So, U.S. bombing Laos, a ground war with Laos with U.S. forces, was not on the table. President Kennedy wrote in his early 1961 that Laos is the most inhospitable area in which to wage a campaign. Its geography, topography, and climate are built-in liabilities. So that's geography, so it's location, it's topography, it's right, it's mountainous regions versus its flat regions, and it's bombing, and it's climate, right? Made it built-in liability. Bombing Laos was seen as safer means of cutting off communist supply into Vietnam before they could be used against American troops. So their morale behind bombing Laos was that this was a trade route. The U.S. Air Force began bombing targets in Laos in 1964, flying planes like AC-130s, B-52s, full of cluster bombs in covert mission based out of Thailand. The United States eventually dropped the equivalent of a plane load of bombs every 8 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna make sure that this is internalized. The United States dropped an equivalent of a plane load of bombs every 8 minutes, 24 hours a day, for 9 years. Okay, so for 9 years, you can't even imagine that. For 9 years, every 8 minutes, nonstop, 24 hours a day for 9 years, every 8 minutes, there was a bomb. Or no, a plane load of bombs every 8 minutes. The bombing focused on disrupting communist supply chains, Ho Chi Minh Trail, Sepon, yeah, to the Vietnamese, okay. Air America was the lifeblood of the Laos operation, transporting personnel, food. So this was essentially they're painting this, they're kind of whitewashing this, but original reports that I had read about this, the real historical I guess you could say deposition is that they were bombing in Vietnam, and when they didn't empty out all the bombs in Vietnam, they would empty the remaining bombs over Laos because it was next to Vietnam, right? They would empty out the extra bombs that were unused in Laos. So this was just like they completely had disregard for any people there, any civilians. They didn't care. They didn't care. 2 million tons, right? They didn't care. They're just like, hey, we never went there. We don't care. We're just unload the bombs. By 1975, 1/10 of the population of Laos, or 200,000 civilians and members of the military, were dead. Twice as many were wounded. 750,000, full quarter of the population, had become refugees. Okay. In 2016, President Barack Obama became the first sitting U.S. president to visit Laos. So these dudes went over there and literally bombed. They didn't even open the door of the plane. They didn't even hop out. No one ever went there since. They just dropped these bombs and dipped. This is the history of America. Okay. So this is all supporting arguments for me telling the FBAs that they don't give a damn about y'all. They don't give a damn. Never have, never will. So if y'all want to isolate yourselves from the rest of Africans that are making moves, good for you. The FBAs seem to have like, it's a huge American sentiment that Americans are like this gift to the world. So FBAs are an extension of that. FBAs believe that tethers, quote unquote tethers, have something to gain from them, when in reality, FBAs don't have anything to offer. They're not holding the majority of the wealth in America. They don't operate the majority of political power in America, or even a minority of political power. They have no political power. They don't set up any infrastructure. There are no FBA cities. So what is to gain from a tether, quote unquote, latching themselves to FBAs? You see, Africans are just under the impression that globally there is a certain alliance to a certain extent, right? Because the Africans have been treated very poorly historically, and that's known globally. All the nations of the world understand that Africans have been treated very poorly historically, right? So Africans are under the impression that, when they go to the Caribbean or they go to the United States, that these are their brothers, right? These are their brothers around the world. Americans, FBA is not so. They've decided that they have they're holding these diamonds that these Africans want to, ironic that I said diamonds, but diamonds come from Africa. So really, what do FBAs have to offer? Nothing. The Africans, right? They come with their culture. They have their families. Their families are intact. They have women in the home, a way higher percentage than Americans, right? And that's not even a racial thing, just in general. If you look at American whites, you look at American blacks, the African culture, it's no brainer. The African culture is murking y'all, right? They're having kids. They have their own language. That's another thing. FBAs are unilingual. Not only are they unilingual, that they speak only one language, but they barely speak that one language. So I see a lot of Americans, and this is not all. I say it, but I shouldn't have to say it. But there's some dummies that'll come in here and thinking that I'm talking about them. I'm not talking about y'all. If I'm not talking about y'all, there are a lot of highly educated, blacks in America. There are a lot of, college educated, wealthy, well-to-do, whatever. And to be honest, the majority of them they're not associated with y'all because these people are not. Put it this way, if these people were associated with y'all would already have political motion. You would have a viable economy. But no, because when American blacks get money, the first thing they want to do is get away from American blacks, which is logical. I would probably do the same thing, likely. Right? So these Africans, they come with their culture, they have a coherent culture, they speak multiple languages, Est-ce que tu parles français, les FBI? No, of course not. You don't speak no français. You speak American. You talk about entitlement. I've seen people talking about the British, right? And they say, oh, they're adding U's, like the word color or labor or neighbor. They're adding a U in there when it's supposed to be color is COLOR. I'm like, yo, the entitlement of Americans, right? They didn't add a O or they didn't add a U, excuse me. Y'all took it out. This is y'all speaking English. English is from England. But Americans are really and it's like they don't think. They will really come up here and say, y'all adding letters into these words. And I'm just like, yo, this is wild. Y'all took it out because the spelling was so poor, right? The school numbers were so terrible that they rewrote the dictionary in America. That's real. That's facts. They rewrote the dictionary. Color, neighbor, I don't know, flavor. Even I don't think it's widely implemented, but bright and night, they were spelling it BRITE, NITE, right? This is not the real spelling, right? So unilingual barely speak the one language that y'all speak, which is the only language. And then you have people coming from Africa who are educated, right? A lot of them are university educated. A lot of them, if they aren't university educated, they may have skills. They come, they work hard, they speak several languages, they're willing to learn other languages. You have Africans learning Spanish. Spanish is the second official language in the United States. How come y'all isn't speaking Spanish? Because you're trying to isolate, or I should say it's by design, because this is from the leadership. It's isolation. Why? To keep y'all isolated? Because then you'll break away. If you get some sort of intelligence about yourselves, you're gonna realize that this is a losing game. The game that y'all is playing is a losing game, and nobody cares. Africans will cut y'all off real quick. Africans come to America, within 5 years they have a rental property. Within 10 years they have a business and they're renting cars. They have a car business, renting the same cars to y'all FBAs, right? I'm sure y'all notice they dress differently. They don't accept this spoon-fed culture that's not even created by y'all, whether it be the music industry or the movies. They're not accepting that. They're keeping their African culture and they're thriving, right? And just wait. It's funny because FBAs love to talk about how they isolate themselves and they don't like white people. But the thing is, y'all love white women, right? And I got nothing against white women because I got nothing against white people in general. But to see someone who is so adamantly against white people and then they run at the first chance to get a white girl, the first white girl that gives them some motion, they're gonna drop that FBA stuff real quick, right? I've seen it in front of me several times, right? And this is another reason why the FBAs don't see any motion, because wealth transfer, right? A lot of these dudes, when they do get money, that money is extracted real quick. Because again, I have nothing against white people, but when you're talking about people that are quote unquote trying to build and they don't like white people and they want to keep to themselves, if you're marrying outside of your race or outside of your culture even, right? That money is gone. Look at some of these dudes ain't even getting married. Look at Shannon Sharp. Shannon Sharp, right? Spent his whole life, right? With his sports career, he worked hard. He got talk shows. He's doing his thing in media. Whole life. I think he was worth what, like $30 million or something, $35 million. The end of his career, I think he was worth like 15 to $20 million, something like that. He got with one 19-year-old OF chick, and she took him for what, 20 mil? That's 20 mil gone. Ciao. You never seen that again. And yo, this dude is gonna like, yo, people don't understand when you have money coming in like that, you have overhead too. People think, oh, I'm gonna make $1 million, I'm gonna retire. No, it's 2025. $1 million ain't shit. Everyone has $1 million that owns a house. Well, if you're in my neighborhood anyway, but you have a house that's worth $500, $600, $700,000, right? You're a millionaire. $1 million is nothing. You sell that house, you have 700K. Where you're gonna live? You're gonna be homeless with 700K. Okay, so now you got to buy another house. Well, the property values are all up. So now you just sold your house for 700K. You got to buy a new one, a worse house, smaller house for 700K, or a much smaller house, or a house out of the city, far in the boonies, for 500 to 600K. So now you got 100 to 200K left, and you're what? Let's say you're 40 years old. Let's say you're 50. You're 50 years old. You got $100,000. What year are you planning to die? How long are you planning to live with your 100K? You're gonna spend 50K a year? Even if you spend 20K a year, which would be you struggling, spending 20K a year, 5-10 years, you're out of money. So people think like $1 million is some big feat. Yo, you gotta be really getting motion out here nowadays. You gotta be getting motion. So for him to, Shannon Sharp, to build that wealth, and then one lapse in judgment, he's so down to smash that white girl. She took him for 20 mil. 20 mil. Lost all his deals. She took him for more than that. Took him for probably about 100 mil because he had a deal coming, right? All of that got canceled over one chick. So this is the wealth transfer, right? This is how FBAs come up off the bag. Y'all tricking on girls, y'all doing all kind of, you're not spending money within yourselves. The data shows it. I don't care. FBAs like to talk about their $5 trillion of spending power and assets. That's all fine and good, but you're not spending it amongst yourselves. You're not using your wealth to build each other up at all. I've seen several depictions, like several graphs where it shows like the average communities, how long a dollar remains in their community. And the black community was the worst. They were showing like black Americans payday, how long the money circulates. It's gone within 2 days, 1 to 2 days. It's completely out of black hands because the chick, she's going to go get her weave, and then she's going to go, she's going out drinking that night. That's for sure. So she's going to the bar. That bar, I don't know if it's owned by a black person. Who knows, right? And again, this is FBA worldview. I don't even worry about all that because again, this is not something you should worry about, right? It's one thing to have, a collective mind and help out your own, but to isolate yourself and to kind of demonize every other race, you're gonna end up like homeboy over here. You're gonna end up like homeboy asking the girls if race mixing is bad. So I mean, it's all looking good for y'all. It's all looking good for y'all. The enemy. Why I say white people are not the enemy? Historically, right? White people have helped out blacks a lot, right? And specifically white women. White women, right? They have a lot to offer. You got to pick them correctly. You can't be out here like Shannon Sharp, right? Eyes bigger than your appetite. You got to get some people that are down, right? You don't just run around and acting crazy, right? But white women historically, they've been an ally. They've been an ally. Why have they been an ally? Because especially you talking now, right? I'm not talking like you have a Lambo and you're Shannon Sharp and you're old as hell and you're trying to get a 20-year-old. You'll probably get in a sticky situation. I'm saying a girl that's your age, right? and you're not leading with your money, you know this girl likes you, and she's gonna see some things, right? More so than the white man, because the white man isn't in that isn't ever in that situation with a black man, right? Because black women and black men are treated very differently in society. A white woman, when she's with a black man, she can see this with a front row seat. She sees discrimination with a front row seat because she sees how her man is treated, right? If you got the right one, if you got one of these bimbos that's just an airhead, she's not gonna notice shit. But you get one of these girls that knows what's up, right? An educated white chick from college or something, right? Yo, she's gonna see some messed up shit and she's not gonna be down. And she's gonna end up thinking, like, yo, some of these white dudes are not chill. Some of these people are discriminatory as hell. And that's something that she would have never interacted with if she had never dated a black man, right? So a lot of the time, these white girls, they've had interaction with black men before, and they've seen some things go down. Because I've been with girls before, and they've pulled me aside. They said, "Hey, I saw how that waitress treated you, right, in that situation." Or they'll see a little thing and they notice right away. Because if you really think about it, the white woman and the black man are complete opposite of the spectrum in terms of how they're treated in America, right? The white woman is pedestalized by everybody in America. This is not a hateful thing. It's not discriminatory. What I'm saying, this is just facts. The white woman is pedestalized in America, and the black man is stood upon in America. He's like the footstool. So when she gets around a black dude and she sees that immediate shift in how people are treating her, she's gonna notice that right away. And that's why a lot of these white girls, they're more on code than some of these black women. Some of these black women, they're not even trying to hear black men, because the FBA men, right? A lot of them, they're all on this, America, America, America. And the black woman knows, right, that these American men for the most part, don't care about him, don't care about the black man. So that's like it's like the black American man is cucking himself, right? The black American man is showing himself as inferior to this woman. That's why you got mammies. That's a mammy. You want to check out a mammy? All these terms I had to Google, because this is some ghetto things. I don't deal with this. So it says here, the mammy stereotype developed as an offensive racial caricature constructed during slavery and popularized primarily through minstrel shows. Enslaved black women were highly skilled domestic working in the homes of white families and caretakers of children. So this kind of is the watered down version of the definition. The real definition, well, it is this. They're not lying, but I would expand on that, is that the mammy is in the slave master's bed. And this is like kind of like a mythos that's been expanded on in present day, because you have, although these women are not enslaved, or the men are not enslaved either, well, you could argue that they are in a form of enslavement. That's another story. But they're not enslaved anymore. However, these women still metaphorically are in the white man's bed. And when I make that statement of the white man in this context, of course, I'm not talking about all white men. I'm talking about the oppressive slave master, right? So if you look at this metaphor, right, the black woman now sees historically, right? The black woman, the white man had he was in the house. He had the nice bed, right? It was nice in there. It was cool. It was cool, temperature wise. It was cool in the day, right? They got windows open. They chilling. It's not like outside in the slave house. They like living under barn conditions. This was a nice You know, this is not, these are white conditions, you know what I'm saying? So that's where that whole mammy stereotype came out of. And that's how a lot of these black women are acting today. Because the black women in America, for some reason, they feel that they're not connected to the black man. Because just women in general, women have access to a whole different world than men have. Right. And I've explained this to women that are in their 60s and they never thought of this because unless someone talks about this with a woman, they don't think about it. A woman, when she's 19, 20, 21, a woman, a young woman, she has access to anything. She could be on yachts. She could go to Dubai, Burj Khalifa. She could do it all, right? Because she has access to dudes. Because dudes that have money, dudes in higher social status will always reach down and grab women. Women are a vibe, right? To have ambiance of women, dudes will pluck a woman out of Wendy's and bring her on a yacht, right? So African or African American or FBA women, right, have come to this conclusion that they are separate from the black man. So they you know, they're gonna divest, they're gonna this, they're gonna that. I don't have a problem with it, right? You could do what you want, but this whole thing stems from the fact that the black man sees himself as inferior. The black man is fighting for someone other than himself. And it's not a violent fight. This is just you trying to win. You want to win, you gotta be, you know, you gotta have your addictions under control. You gotta be a disciplined man, right? You gotta be a strong man. It's not just physical, but mental strength, right? Emotional strength, right? A lot of these issues, yeah, I'm not downplaying the fact that a lot of cops will you know, stereotype, or a lot of cops will uh you know, be prejudiced, and they may look more intently in your car, or they may bring a dog. But if you know that, you got to make sure that you have your T's crossed and your I's dotted. If you go to work, you come straight home from work, you make your food, that's it. No hanging out by you know, by the corner store, no drinking outside. You put yourself in those situations for these people to come pick you up, right? I'm not condoning, you know, the atrocities that a lot of these people, you know, do in these communities, but I'm just saying a lot of it is avoidable. And if your attitude is right, you know, black men have this problem where they have a lot of ego, right? And I understand a lot of, you know, a lot of black men are beaten down. This is just facts. People don't like to hear it. People think people are complaining. I agree. Some people blow it out of proportion. Some people use it as a crutch. But on the reals, black men are beaten down. They're told every day that they're lesser than. They're told every day that, you know, they were just slaves, they were this, they were that. That's one of the reasons why a lot of these black men, all they want to do is get money. They think they're going to get money, and all of a sudden they're going to have access to all these white women. They're going to move out the hood. They're going to move around these white people. I can tell you from someone who grew up around white people, from someone who grew up in a white neighborhood, in, you know, upper middle class situations, those people are not going to accept you like you're a white person. Never. I get called N word regularly, right? And a lot of these people call me the N word, their families, you know, my four grandparents, both grandparents on both sides, mother and father, all university educated. My parents met at a university library. So I got people calling me N-word, and their parents are not educated. They're not educated. Their grandparents aren't educated. But because there's this, you know, there's still this underlying idea that black people come from a certain area, they come from a certain culture. All of that is this fake American culture that's purported in movies that y'all have accepted now. And now they could paint that on any black person that they choose. You see that happening in this past week, where one black person, you know, does a heinous crime on a bus or a metro train or whatever. And there's a war on black America. They like want to round them all up, feed them to the alligators. Right? You see that. So it doesn't matter if, you know, look, while I pull up this video, just the other day, my mother was telling me something because she went to a funeral. One of her, I believe it was a close friend, their parent passed away or something. And it was a white funeral. Because my mother, I'm third generation. We've been out here, okay? That's what I'm telling you. Someone that's been out here, you're not gonna. It doesn't matter how much money you make. Doesn't matter what house you live in, your tax bracket. These people are not gonna accept you. They're still gonna look down on you, even if they're below you because of skin. So my mother's at the funeral now, and this woman comes up to her and says like, "Oh, wow, thank you. You were so kind to so and so's mother. You were so." They thought my mother was the caretaker. My mom's there to support her friend because one of the friend's family members passed away. And these people are coming up to my mother saying like, "Oh, thank you for taking care of the woman," because they think she's the housekeeper. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So just to show, you're always seen as, you're always in a certain category. Doesn't matter how much money you get, how much money you spend, how much Gucci designer. Let me just find this video real quick. Real quick. It came with all the supporting evidence today. All them receipts. All them receipts.
Touched her schedule in weeks,
Yeah.
and somehow she's ahead on everything. I saw you mention in a recent interview that you hired someone who completely
To his politics, but
This is you.
you'll get the idea from what
This is your
the
sister,
content is, right?
your wife, your daughter. But this right here is you.
So right
This is
here,
your sister.
this, obviously you see is a white dude, right? This dude made a video. It's called "This Is You." Okay, this dude, he films on super widescreen. I never saw this anywhere else. But the guy's, he's a bit out there. So he starts the video off by saying, "This is
This
you."
is you.
So this is you. Okay, this is his audience he's talking to, which I have no problem with that. This is you, right? But pay attention.
This is your sister,
This
your
is your
wife,
sister,
your daughter.
your wife, your daughter.
But this
right
here is you.
This is you.
This is your sister, your wife, your daughter. This is you. This is your sister, your wife, your daughter.
Interesting. Okay. So this is your sister, your wife, your daughter. So let's expand that. Let's extrapolate that. So what does that make this dude? What does that make this dude? So now you understand, this woman is your wife, your sister, your daughter. See, these people, they're like intellectuals, you know, and they think that there are no black intellectuals going to catch on to this type of, this is witchcraft what they're doing. This is spellcraft, right? This is how the intelligent whites get down. And you got some less intelligent whites that fall for this. They foam at the mouth. Right? So he's saying that this is your wife, your sister, your daughter, right? So he's associated now all the white people with, okay? So now, what's on the other side of the coin? What do you think? So who is this? That's you. That's you. That's what he is trying to say here. If this is every white person in his audience, then this person must be every black person in America. That's the message that they're putting forth. So I don't care how much money you finna get. Y'all ain't gonna get accepted by these people. I'm telling you. And I don't care. Africans don't care in general. Right? They don't care in general because America really doesn't have much to offer. Just being real, there's not much there. There's not much there. It's not the 1970s anymore. You know, there's no industry, there's no production. It's nothing. That's why they're going on these witch hunts around the world. So now, another thing that the FBAs love, the Second Amendment. The glorious Second Amendment. But you see, a lot of FBAs, they don't read. Some do, you know. Of course, there's some FBAs that are going to university. They got, They got PhD. They got their PhD, especially black women. Hold on. But a lot of y'all is not reading. And even if you got a PhD, you're not reading on your own, right? You read for school just to get that paper on your wall, but you're not reading anymore. So, Second Amendment. That so many Americans hold so dear. So many black Americans, especially black MAGA. I don't know how many FBA black MAGAs there are, but I'm sure there are a few. Racist gun laws and the Second Amendment. This is from Harvard Law Review. Okay. For a significant portion of American history, gun laws bore the ugly taint of racism. The founding generation that wrote the Second Amendment had racist gun laws, including prohibitions of the possession, carrying of firearms of black people, whether free or enslaved. A Florida law in 1825 authorized white people to enter into all Negroes' houses and lawfully seize and take away such arms, weapons, and ammunition. So I was watching a great gentleman, General Seti, and he was talking about how if you look historically, right? I don't like to be. I'm not a racist guy. He has his angles, right? But he definitely cooks. I'm not all the way with him on some of his takes, right? But he cooks. And basically he was saying that if you look historically at, or even now at white, American, we'll call it American war policy, right? Or war tactics. These dudes are only getting into fights where they are extremely outgunning their opponent, right? You don't see any of these men willing to go hand to hand with people, right? This was the point he's making, that they're only willing to fight with someone if they have, 10 guns, a rocket launcher, a tank. So these dudes are not fighting on an equal playing ground. And this spills into America domestically, right? On an international level, we know they don't give a damn about nobody, because we saw in Laos what they did, right? There are also other examples, right? More recent examples. They've done this up until late 2010s, right? In the Caribbean. So these laws, Second Amendment laws, right, were originally so that they had firearms and y'all didn't. So they were allowed, especially in Florida, 1825, they were allowed to go into Negroes' houses and lawfully take away all the weapons and ammunition. So you see, they want something that you don't have. They want to always have that upper hand on you. You see, this is from the beginning of the country, not long ago, right? 250-year-old country. We're not talking about 2,000 years ago, right? I don't know, y'all in for a rude awakening. I see a lot of, particularly influencers in recent past few months, just getting completely cooked, because they've dedicated their whole lives, their whole career to being, a shoulder for white to cry on. They're always going against blacks. Anything happens with a black and a white, they're always taking the black side. And again, you have a lot of whites that do the same thing, but they don't succeed. People that have that type of serious bias, because look, everybody knows that all white people are not good. Everyone knows that all black people are not good, or all black people are not bad, and all white people are not bad. So if you are under the impression that your whole race can do no wrong, you're in for a rude awakening. You're gonna get scammed galore, because you're gonna end up tying yourself to people who, just because, like an FBA, for example, if an FBA believes that FBAs are the only ones to be trusted, hard red line, not trusting no blacks not from America, quote unquote tethers, not trusting no tethers, not trusting no Asians, no whites, right? You're gonna get robbed by an FBA. Some FBA is gonna borrow money and not pay you back. Some FBA gonna smash your girl. You can't just go on these like tribal ideas. That's ridiculous. Same thing for white people. The white people that think, oh, only blacks commit crimes, only these people do this. Oh, the Jews, right? These people that want to always blame, right? Everyone else but themselves, they fall into the same issue. Right? You can't just live based on race. Race is not the be all end all. I'll give you an example here. When you look at the KKK, which is a lovely American Protestant-led Christian extremist group. Okay. Christian Protestant extremist group. Okay, interesting. So noted. When you look at these movements, a lot of their downfall came from within. Right? We had they had sexual scandals. If you know the history of the clan, they had financial scandals. So people was robbing money, people was smashing girls, probably underage girls for all we know, right? And this was only their people. Huh. So imagine they thought that in their utopia of not only just whites, but whites that they completely align with, that they agree with damn near everything, right? They're a very niche group, but they still managed to have these issues, right? So why is that? It's because there's no group that's infallible. There's no group that is not going to screw you over if you think that they're only good. That's the best way to fail. So that's why when I see the majority of whites who are like these whites only, white first type of people, they're not successful. The successful racists are inwardly racist and they don't talk about it, whatever. They still do business, they still hire different races, they still, they may eat at different restaurants, ethnic restaurants, but they may be racist. They may not want their daughter to marry outside of their race, but they're not going to be out here on the YouTube, like if a black person dies, they're not going to be out here celebrating, dancing on the corpse. They're not going to be out here, posting, whites got to stand up. Nah, if you look at, in England, I know you guys don't know where that is, FBAs, but I'm just kidding. Playing. In England, they had a Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson is a guy, he's like a far right mover in the UK. He had one of his rallies. If you look at these dudes, a lot of these dudes, you don't see very many Chads. You don't see Chads complaining about, in America, you don't see Chads complaining about blacks taking their girls because Chads get married at 18, 19, 20. They snatched up their high school sweetheart and they got married and that's it. Chads are off the market or they become absolute machines and they just shred through girls, right? But they're not complaining that blacks are taking their girls. The dudes that are complaining about quote unquote mud sharks and going on the street and interviewing girls trying to bait them, those are the dudes that are not having success with women. Those are the dudes that are not the cool kid. Those are the dudes that need to blame and point finger on everybody but themselves. They won't work on themselves. They won't go to the gym. They won't read a book to get some sort of a more developed, mind rather than just always talking about immigration and the left wing and the blacks and the crime. They don't elevate themselves mentally. They don't elevate themselves physically, but they for some reason think that they're entitled to a 10 on 10 white girl just because they're white. And the white girls are saying, nah, we're not with it. The white girls are not with it. They ain't with it. So the FBAs, that's why generationally, they don't get any motion. They get no motion because the whole time that they're hating on other people are building, other people are creating families, other people are, building their communities, supporting their community, going outside. Y'all need to go outside more, I think. Y'all on your computer or you're on your phone, you're watching these esoteric groups that y'all get in. Not finna go nowhere, right? ChatGPT is telling you, right? Just to reiterate, no unified economic agenda. Where's the FBA unified economic agenda? That's what I want to know. No FBA economic blueprint. Few institutions. No banks. Maybe ChatGPT got it wrong. Maybe y'all got banks. I'm finna see some banks. No national investment groups. No economic infrastructure specifically for FBA. Wealth gap. Y'all still making 20K when the white man making 180K. You know, it's unbelievable. Why hasn't this been done? How many years has FBA been around? How many years have y'all been, drinking the Kool-Aid, blaming the white man? The white man don't care about y'all. The only whites that are involved with y'all is, like I said, the ones at the bottom. And y'all duking it out together. You got the blacks that are getting rich and getting the hell away from y'all. And you got the whites that are rich that you never see. You could dream about it. And then you got those lower level whites who interacting with y'all. And that's the real racial tension is in these neighborhoods. And I go at white people too. Those white people that want to talk about all this racial stuff, and I go at them too, right? I have no hate, but I press them with hard questions. I tell them often, I say, look, I realize that the most white people that complain about blacks is poor whites, because when you're talking about people who are low income, there's going to be high crime regardless of race. So if you're around low income people, you're going to be around criminal blacks, because you're also going to be around criminal whites. And they don't like that very much, because I'm basically telling them, yeah, I see you. I know what neighborhood you live in if you're complaining about black people, because I don't know any rich people that complain about black people unless it's performative and it's political. But real people that, just private people that are not public figures, just people that hop in their Bentley and go to work, they're not complaining about black people. They're not. They're really not. Y'all need to do some building and stop the complaining. You're not going to get reparations. It's not happening. There's no money for y'all. You've seen, I can't understand how an FBA would watch over the years, 10, 20, 30, 40, 60, 100 years, would watch as billions of dollars are sent overseas. Billions of dollars are sent to Ukraine, Middle East, etc. Right? You name it. Billions of dollars. And y'all have not got a dollar. And you never will. You never will, because the economy is not on the upswing right now. I don't know if y'all know, right? But the American economy is doing very poorly right now, and it's on a downtrend. Okay? Globally, it's on a downtrend. This is why you see so much racial tension being stoked, because these people the people on the ground are trying to distract themselves from the reality that there's no money. The drip is slowing up, right? It's a slow drip, and it's soon gonna be no drip, right? There's no money. There's no economy. These tariffs are backfiring. You have China laughing. China's saying, "Oh, you guys tariffed our meat. Now we buy meat from Australia. It's better quality." You have other countries that don't even engage in any trade. It's just performative tariffs. I believe there are tariffs on Laos, of all places. Isn't that ironic? Tariffs on Laos, tariffs on Cambodia. I know Indonesia, they have a huge shmata business or whatever for clothing. I know they're big in clothing, them in Bangladesh, but otherwise, most countries don't care about these tariffs. It's just to make Americans think that Trump is being tough on other countries, when in reality, he's not doing much. The first term Trump, I liked first term Trump. He did a lot. He was a lot less unhinged. He was unhinged, but he was a lot less unhinged, right? But Trump, since he came back, pure garbage. And y'all gonna see, next 5 years, US is cooked. And that's why they're stoking so hard to have this internal unrest, because when there's unrest, people are not concentrating so much on the poor governance. They're concentrating on the fact that, oh, this black dude one out of millions of blacks that take the public transit every day stabbed a woman. I'm not diminishing. It was a heinous crime. It was disgusting. I wouldn't want anyone to take part in that type of violence. It was an innocent girl. I'm not saying that, right? But I'm saying, out of that guy, how many millions of black Americans take public transit and don't do that? How many millions of black Americans take public transit and aren't committing violent crimes, theft, any other? How many millions per day? But they want to concentrate on the one and they hyper focus on it purposefully, right? This is by design. They hyper focus on it to rile up ignorant people on both sides. Some people, I'm sure, are justifying that. If you're doing that, that's wild. If you lose your job and you get, harassed because you're glorifying that, then you kind of deserve it, because that's wild. But on the reals, it's just the bottom of the bottom are fighting over this stuff, when really the issue is not with each other. The issue is not with immigrants. The immigrants are not taking your gerbs. The immigrants are not crashing your economy. It's the fact that Americans don't produce. It's the fact that people now are in their phones. They want to become crypto millionaires. Youth doesn't want to work, right? If you look at white people, for example, white people used to, like, young white men, right? These same ones that are going up in colleges and doing the pew pew stuff, is because they don't have an outlet. White men used to, play guitar. They used to skateboard. Now they ain't doing nothing. They're all online. They're all video gaming. They're not doing nothing. Didn't do nothing, right? That's what is the problem in America. And it's not racial. It's across the board. All races in America are not what they once were. They're not what they once were. And that the manufacturing is not coming back because people don't have the same work ethic. Everyone's on their phone. I see crossing guards on their phone. You're supposed to be helping children get across the street for school, and you're watching TikTok. That's the level of depravity of American culture, the Western culture in general. I can't only blame Americans for that, but just because I'm concentrating on America for this talk, Americans are not what they once were. They are not producing. And that's why the military is so strong. There's such military might, because their economy now is based off of what they could pillage from other countries. And that's why they're ramping up this whole rhetoric with the Middle East, and they're trying to do these deals and all this stuff. This all boils down to the economy is cooked. And what happens to people who are already cooked, right? Namely the FBAs. What happens to people who are already cooked? Once the country gets really cooked, y'all gonna be double cooked. Y'all gonna be, well done steak. Put a fork in it. You're finished, right? So, I mean, my suggestion would be y'all better start looking at these African and Caribbeans like, yo, because the African and Caribbeans, the thing about Africa, I've seen Africans come and go. They'll come to Western countries, they make their guala, and they get the hell out. They move somewhere else, straight up. So a lot of these Africans, they may come there, they're gonna make their money, they're gonna dip. They're putting their money in their community. They're sending money back to Africa. They're doing trade. These people are importing stuff. They open up shops. They got their African fruits and vegetables shipped in. These people, they organize. They're organized. They know what they're doing. They speak several languages. They dress well. Their style, right? They look presentable. They don't have this weird. They don't have sexy red. Africans don't listen to sexy red. So until y'all get a control of your community, right, and actually start to build and actually start to, spend your dollars within your culture, within, and it's not discrimination. It's just all the cultures do this. You get Ukrainians coming to the country. They have their Ukrainian cultural areas. They know where to shop for their fruits and vegetables. They know people that speak their language, this and that. You have Chinese, same thing. You have Lebanese, same thing. Everybody does that except FBA, and it's supposed to be their country. The FBA should have the most established infrastructure, but they have the least. How is that possible? Think about that. How is it possible that FBA's been in the country the whole time, claim that they are native? A lot of them are claiming they're native, which is completely delusional. Some Black Americans were native, but most are African. right? And even the ones that are quote unquote native are African descent. They either walked across the Bering Strait when they were doing explorations, or they, they were on ships as well, right? There's documentation of African exploration, African explorers, right? People see pyramids all over the world, don't want to talk about that. Just gonna say, oh, aliens built it, oh, this, that. No, Africans were all around the world. So there were some Africans in America, don't get me wrong. But y'all can't all cling to that. And you that's not your life. It's nice to think about. It's nice stories to tell your kids, you at holidays, you share these stories, right? But you can't shape your identity on that. That's not feasible. It's not feasible. Had one last thing here to look at. Where that? Oh yeah, here. This is interesting. I wasn't planning on showing this, but why not? Why not? Why not? National Park to remove photo. Whoa. What's going on here? Is this for real? I was just looking at this. What the hell? What the helly? Okay, when in doubt, refresh. Damn, they really hit me with that, eh? Freaking paywallers. Let me see if I can get this. Hold on. What is it called? National Park to remove photo. Interesting how it's paywalled in a few hours. This is a hard article to find. All this stuff's being hidden right now. So Washington Post doesn't work, so I might have to go to. Well, let's try the Independent. Let's see. Yeah, this is a new one from the 16th of September. It's a new one. Okay. National Park to remove its exhibit of famed photographs showing former slaves scarred back. These are the types of things that if y'all got an FBA organization, how is this happening? You telling me that y'all established in the country for hundreds of years and you don't even have control over your slave sites? Interesting. In 1863, at the height of the Civil War, two Baton Rouge photographers captured an image of a former slave horrifically scarred back that shocked white Americans across the Union. Now that photo is among dozens of exhibits about slavery at several national parks, which have reportedly been ordered to be removed by the Trump administration. According to the Washington Post, National Park Service officials have taken exception to various signs and displays of Harper's Ferry National Historical Park, Virginia. All were deemed to violate Trump's executive order restoring truth and sanity to American history. Okay? Truth and sanity to American history. So, again, just like the video that I showed earlier, the flip side of that is what? That means that your history is untrue and insane. You understand that, right? Because if he's taking down your slave exhibits, right, in order to restore truth and sanity, then that is indicating that your history is untrue and insane. Very interesting. Where are the FBAs? Where are these dudes? What are they doing about this? Have they even heard about this? The order accused the Biden administration of indulging in a corrosive ideology. So they see your ideology as corrosive. Okay, interesting. That sought to cast the U.S. as inherently racist, sexist. The president. Yeah, okay. So this is the gentleman's back. As you can see, the scorched back, 1863. Photo of a formerly enslaved man named Peter solidified the public support for abolition of slavery. Okay. So that happened yesterday. FBAs, what's going on? How come? There's no infrastructure. There's no economic infrastructure. There is no political infrastructure, political movement, or political weight whatsoever. Okay. So maybe they have some sort of influence on their historical sites and slavery exhibits. Oh no, they have no power over that whatsoever. Interesting. Okay, that's what we call a weird flex. Very interesting. Okay, what else have we here? Mhm. So, talking about shopping designer, y'all ain't keeping your money in your pocket. You get paid and you're going to get designer to show who? I don't know. Why designer brands keep the middle class in poverty, the marketing and economics behind it. So, people are under the impression that wealthy people are all about designer. I know some wealthy people that wear designer, not many. Not many. Most of the wealthy people I know don't wear designer. I know one kid I grew up with. His family didn't. They were French family. His family didn't even put on heat in the winter because they were that frugal. They were saving their money. They didn't put on heat. I think they were a family of 6 children. They used to shop at the thrift store. Black people are like ashamed to shop at a thrift store. They think like people are gonna judge them. When in reality, white people be shopping at the thrift store, and guess what? Those people now they are landlords, and they own what? Probably 20 doors, as they say in the industry. 20. They have 20 properties, 20 rental properties. The home they live in a house that's not too far from where I live. They're living in a house that's at least $3 million, 2.5, $3 million house, right? These are people that didn't used to put on heat, and their children wore clothing from the thrift shop. But y'all wearing designer, you got no house, you don't own a house, got no assets, wearing designer. From a young age, many of us have memories of walking in the mall down Fifth Avenue, staring at glamorous designer stores. Wow, that's not very relatable. Even I don't have those memories. Walking down Saks Fifth. What, are you nuts? There were so many options: Gucci, Louis, Dior, Versace, Prada. Okay, yada yada yada. $3,000 for an Rick Owens jacket. I never even heard of that brand. The assumption is that they were made for the top 1% earners. However, recent trends in marketing strategies and demographic polls show that designer companies actually target middle class consumers. In this article, we will uncover the economic and marketing strategies of designer companies. So, this is painting it like, middle class, but let's talk about the lower class, right? If they're telling you outwardly right here that designer brands market to middle class people rather than upper class, that tells you right there. Designer industries have played their cards right in maximizing their profits. They hold themselves to the highest standards, refusing to discount anything. In doing so, it attracts celebrities to their products, which outreaches to middle class consumers. There you go. Because in American culture, people worship celebrities. So the celebrity got on a Hermes belt. I gotta buy a Hermes belt. Chief Keef got a Gucci buckle, Ferragamo buckle. I gotta get a Ferragamo buckle. $1,000 belt. I have a funny story. A friend of mine, a young guy, Jewish guy actually, Moroccan Jew, he had a Ferragamo belt. Was it Ferragamo or Louis? Yeah, Ferragamo, because it has the 2 circles, the 2 rings, right? Let me pull this up. Ferragamo. A lot of y'all know what that looks like. When I'm talking to FBA, I know y'all know the designer. Y'all don't know Laos, but you know designers. So Ferragamo makes these belts. That's what a Ferragamo belt looks like. So he had this belt, and this belt is so obnoxious. This buckle is so intrusive. It ended up pinching a nerve in his like upper leg, right? When he would sit down, it would pinch a nerve in his upper leg. And this dude ended up going to the hospital. The circulation to one of his testicles was cut off, and one of his testicles ended up inflating to the size of a grapefruit from a Ferragamo belt. So imagine you spend what do we hear? This is a men's, but that's a thin one. $700 US on a belt, just for it to give you medical issues, just for it to cut off your circulation. And Ferragamo, hey, this is I'm not going after y'all. Y'all got great quality leather products. This was an isolated incident. It is how do you say, anecdotal. I'm not saying that it will happen, but just putting that out there. So these people are telling you straight up that it's not made for rich people. New York, the monthly middle class income in 2019 was $6,283. Monthly middle class income. Okay. Is that two people? Okay. Compared to the United States in 2018, this income range, 24% of people reported owning a Louis Vuitton item. Imagine. 24% of people reported owning a Louis Vuitton item in 2022. People that are making $6K a month have an item. Cheapest Louis Vuitton item you're gonna get is what? Like a freaking a hat? Get a Louis Vuitton hat for maybe like $350 or something or more. So you own one Louis item and you making 3K, you making 3K each? Or let's say it's one person even making 6K a month. That ain't no money. You making, after taxes, you buying Louis? You're not even cracking 100K. You buying Louis? That's wild. But you see that a lot in the black community because blacks like something called conspicuous consumption, which is they consume things that are seen. Whereas other cultures, they will consume things that are not necessarily seen. They'll buy, things that are going to help them make money, things that will help them build a brand, things that are useful. Other cultures, they'll buy a computer, or they'll buy, if they're in photography, they'll buy a new camera because it's for their business. It's something they could even write off on a tax because it's a business expense, right? They're not buying a Lambo, right? If you made $100,000 or if you made $250,000 a year, you can't afford a Lambo. People think like, oh, I'm gonna make 100K a year, I'm gonna have a Bentley. You can't buy a Bentley making 100K a year. You can't. You can, I guess, but you shouldn't. You should not buy a Bentley even making 300K a year. You shouldn't. A lot of people do. There are a lot of people that make 300K a year that will buy a Bentley, but it's not a wise financial decision, realistically, because a lot of these people, they end up getting in over their head, right? So the more money you make, the more you decide to spend. So going back to that whole, oh, I'm going to win the lottery, I'm going to strike it rich, this and that. Once you have that money, like let's say you start making 100K a month. I see this a lot more with women where they think, oh, I'm going to hit this number and I'm going to be set. No, you won't, because you're going to make 100K a month. You're going to spend 120K a month. There's everyone out there can take your money. There's money to be taken anywhere you turn, right? So you could have $5 million in your hand. You could easily buy something for $6 million. You could have $100 million in your hand. Go buy a B-2 bomber. You'll be in debt real quick. $2 billion freaking warplane, right? So it's not how much money you got. It's a matter of money management. There are people that make 50K a year that are living better, living more comfortably. I'm not saying in terms of luxury comforts, but they're living more comfortably. Their bills are all paid, right? They're making 50K. And then there are people, actually, there's a statistic that I saw recently. 100K. And I wonder how many of these are black women, because black women like to talk about their PhDs, black American women I'm talking about. Like talk about their PhDs and their career. 100K living paycheck to paycheck, right? CNBC. Here's why even Americans making more than 100K live paycheck to paycheck. Can you imagine that? Here's why Americans can't keep money in their pockets even when they get a raise. It seems like your paycheck disappears quickly when it hits your bank account. You're not alone. Get ready for this. More than 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck as of September 23. Even people in higher income brackets are affected. More than half of Americans earning over 100,000 per year live paycheck to paycheck. How does that happen, you may ask? Because their eyes are bigger than their appetite. Once they start making 100K a year, they're spending 120. Credit cards maxed out. You know, people, they got 5 million to their name, they're getting a $7 million house. You see this a lot more in the Black community, FBA community. See it a lot more. See it a lot more, let me tell you. Right? So when you have money, you want to live a lavish life, you start to see your overheads, your expenses get wild. They get wild. You know, so that's another major Black problem. Blacks are too concerned with showing their wealth to everybody, which anyone who's wealthy knows that that's the last thing you want to do. Looking rich is dangerous. People trying to hit a lick on you, you know, people are jealous. You know, being wealthy is not fun. People just think, "Oh, I'm going to take all these trips. I'm going to this, I'm going to that." Yo, everybody be hating. People hate on people that don't even got money. So imagine when you get money, how people are gonna hate, you know, and these things. A lot of people think they're gonna move out of a Black neighborhood, and that's why I'm going back to these FBAs. They think that America is their bread and butter. It's their savior. America, America, America. At the end of the day, get some money and see how America treats you. You a Black man in America with money? Let me see where you live. Let me see where you're gonna live. Because even you think that it's gonna be Black coming for you quick, because you know you got a lot of people saying, "Oh, Black is all criminals." Yeah, get some money and see how fast a white person breaks into your house. How fast a white person tries to skimp you on a deal. And again, this is not something that's inherent to whites. I'm not saying that it's because they're white they're doing that. I'm just saying jealousy is a bitch, right? I've worked with people like that. That's why I try my best to downplay everything. In my real life, in the real world, I'm not trying to be braggadocious. I'm not trying to flex. The people that flex, they're the ones that get picked off. They're the ones that get robbed. They're the ones that have a miserable lifestyle. They're the ones that attract women like Shannon Sharp, right? Which, I mean, granted, he's an athlete. It's not very easy for him to hide his wealth, but these are the types of people that come around you when you're wealthy. You're not sure who is there for you and who is there for your money. So these are problems that the wealthy face. You know, that's why I don't get behind these dating coaches that say, "Oh, you need to get a bag, you need to this, you need to work on yourself as a man. You need to work on yourself." You got to understand, yo, being a man is it's about being with your own thoughts, being in solitude, meditation, prayer, whatever you want to call it. You know, it's not all about, "Oh, I'm gonna have my friends, I'm gonna go on the yacht." Nah, you want to get real money, you gotta get locked in, and you make it happen, right? And you don't floss, because the people that floss, they're gonna come up off it. Let me tell you. Anyway, I think that's all I had for tonight. How long did we go? We went 2 hours and 7 minutes. Yeah, I'll end it here. I had a chat before. I don't even look at the chat. I just be full steam ahead. I don't come here for the chat. I ain't doing no panels. I don't care. Yo, I don't care if it takes me 20 years to build my channel. I'm not trying to have no stupidity going on. I'm not trying to have no FBAs come up here and start talking their stupidity, right? I want to have real conversations up here. I'm talking about real shit. I want the people that I want coming here are high quality people. I'm not out here evangelizing for low quality people. But anyway, Rye 9320 says, why isn't Akon doing African music? Well, Akon being African, any music he does will be African. But jokes aside, why? Because the same reason that you have blacks like Officer Tatum or Hodge twins who make seemingly white supremacist content. There's your answer. Why doesn't Akon do African music? Because he's in the US and he's selling to y'all. So it's not about what music he makes. It's about what are you people consuming. So you got to watch what you're consuming. If you have a problem with Africans, which you should not, then you should be consuming FBA music. But hey, guess what? FBA music ain't all that great. I'm not saying it's not talented. I'm saying the messaging is not an uplifting message. And it was not always like this because the old hip hop, the old funk, soul, right? Jazz, this was uplifting music. And that's why the music industry changed hands because y'all didn't build no wealth. Y'all didn't get these labels, right? Y'all could have built labels, could have built media companies. Nah, you were too busy out there buying Gucci belts and tricking it off on white girls. So that's why you don't have a music label. And that's why you guys got FBA, lovely FBA music like Sexy Red, right? I understand there are people like Beyonce, there are people, Kelly Rowland who are doing good music. I'm not saying there isn't that. I always have to give these caveats because people are gonna freak out, right? People will still freak out even with the caveats. But I'm just saying, look at the music that is pushing in your community. Look at Lil Nas X. You think that was going on in the good old days of America? Y'all have lost control. You lost control. So that's why Akon is not doing African music. All right, Mr. Rye. Anyway, thank you so much for enjoying this very info-packed stream. Rewind that, play that back. Check it out. A lot of info in here. Search it up yourself. Read. Comment. Don't say anything stupid or I will ban your ass. Shout out to General Seti for bringing forth that good knowledge about how these white dudes be out here. They want all the guns, they want all the weapons, but they ain't trying to give you no weapons when they come into a fight. They ain't coming to a fair fight. This ain't no fair fight. But again, thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.